trail that we just started with this last episode, back to basics, back to really the philosophic basis for osteopathic medicine. And now, I'm going to use a term.
We've also established a new background for where we're recording, if that wasn't clear. You have a mantle and I have my desk in the background, as opposed to my guest bedroom.
Well, and we might have to put up some green screens and do some extra fun stuff in the background in the future.
Fair enough. I'll leave that to you.
Hey, we could throw some anime in the background. That would be amazing. Some maybe osteopathic anime. I don't know.
I could almost imagine something. If somebody were to illustrate Wheel of Time, it would probably look like Shonen AF. So, who knows?
Where is Random?
That was a really hard level of nerd to just start the episode. We should start over. Welcome to Rolling Bones.
Well, this next one might refer to the Foundation series. Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll quit with the geek out while we're at it. So we're going to discuss a term that tends to cause some consternation in the osteopathic world. And if you talk to some osteopaths and you say the word holistic healthcare or holistic, what kind of response does that sometimes cause?
Yeah, it's a fun one. I will admit, so it is one of the words that I use quite often, and I simultaneously hate and almost throw up a little bit every time I say the word, which is unfortunate because back to Wheel of Time references, actually. We're back there. Anyway, the word's been tainted.
This is the
by the way, season 5 was dope. Oh, sorry, episode 5 was dope.
Yeah. I haven't seen them yet, but I've read all of the books, so
it's quite good. Basically, they gave up on trying to emulate the books. I'm considering this just another turning of the wheel, because if I try to condense the headcanon appropriately, my head will explode. But if I figure, you know what, it's a revolving cycle, birth, rebirth, it's a new rotation, I'm like, you know what? I can incorporate all of the variation into maybe it's just a new wheel. Okay.
The wheel turns as the wheel will.
Basically. But I bring that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I bring that up, one, because I was just watching the episode with my wife, but two, the word holistic is a really powerful word when it's used effectively, because it encompasses so much of what we do in a very, very small, succinct way. The issue is that word has become so many different things, and it's been integrated and used in so many different ways that it's lost some of that power, right? Like, holistic has now overtones of alternative medicine, kind of granola, wellness, exercise, fitness, doctors just doing their job to standard of care. Like, all of that's been conflated, right? Like, doing good medicine, yoga, and granola bars have somehow shared this one word.
Meditation.
And I guess, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that any of that's bad.
No, let's face it. Osteopaths were doing the wholeness thing, the holistic thing, before it was a thing. We just called it osteopathic principles, osteopathic medicine, rather than holistic stuff. And honestly, I think we use the term because in the public's mind, it's something that is relatable and understandable, even if it doesn't truly address what it's trying to describe, if that makes sense.
Right. It does. And I've met various osteopaths, various physicians, wellness coaches, everything in between, who've held on to different aspects of the word. Like, for example, the part of holistic that resonates with me very effectively is that vaguely anti-establishment kick that the word has come to take on. Like,
yeah, that's kind of what we do.
Kinda. Let's be real. Like, AT still kind of rebelled against the system, made his own damn thing, went full on punk rock. You know what I mean? Practically speaking, but that's the part of that story that connects with me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, all right, you were disappointed with the system. You know what I mean? You know how it works, and you're like, screw this noise. Let's do something better. Let's go. Where's my amplifier? Give me some
Yeah.
distortion. You know what I mean?
Throw me some bass, and then give me a good riff.
Yeah. Oh man. For those who need the context, I'm 32. I grew up in the 90s. So it went from grunge. I was too young for grunge, and by the time I grew up, it was that really awkward phase of like ska punk ish.
Oh
But
yeah, and there was some boy bands in there too.
well, see that's what I punked out of basically. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I went from
Mm-hmm.
Backstreet Boys to
Did you skip New Kids
yeah.
on the Block?
Anyway, yeah, yeah. You remember LFO?
Oh yeah, yeah. I never really
Yeah,
got into LFO, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I had to by default because I was 10 years old, man. Like it was
Oh,
just every kid had to know every word to the song.
that was a
Oddly
requirement.
enough, New Kids on the Block, but that's what I'm getting at. The part of the punk, oh sorry, the part of the holistic, uh, I guess, phenomenon that I really grafted onto was the anti-establishment. I don't like the system. Let's find a way to do it better component, right?
Hmm.
But then I
Hmm.
hang out with some legit hippie folk, and they're like, "You're a bit too intense for me, man." I'm like, "Okay, I'll calm the mohawk down. Hold on. What are you about?" But it's still the same word,
And it has some differing connotations. You even see it in the spelling. So some folks spell it WHOLISTIC, and other people take off the W and just call it holistic with a HOLISTIC. And that connotation can change the meaning of the word from the whole person to the holy person, if you will, that to add the spiritual aspect, which is interesting because that played a role in what Dr. Still was doing as well, coming from the religious background of his childhood. So it, as much as we like to take the spiritual side and separate it from our professional side, it was a distinct uh, component to what Dr. Still was doing at the time.
right? I mean that is one of our tenets, right? The whole mind, body, and spirit,
Hmm.
not dichotomy, trifecta, triune, triumvirate,
You-
phenomenon
Trinity,
of three,
Trinity.
Trinity.
Would
There you
should
go.
we call it? We could call it a Trinity. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah, the Trinity, the triple threat. You get the idea. Basically, the mind, body, and spirit were considered not different phenomenon, and that's a big deal. It wasn't like, oh, we have a mind, we have a body, we have a spirit. It was more reasonable to say that we had three, I guess, layers of perception, three filters, three modes of understanding to look at the same phenomenon, right? Like when I take care of a person, I have to shift between a physical, mental, or spiritual filter. But that does not imply that these are distinct entities. It's more of which version of perception gets me to the answer that I'm looking for, right?
And to go along with that, how do you take care of all three? Especially when you have a patient population that encompasses, excuse me, such a wide variety of experiences in all three aspects of life, right? And if you have two or three distinctly different religions, you have someone coming from Islam, and you have someone coming from Hindu, and you have someone in your clinic coming from a Christian faith. How can you enable the clinic to make sure that aspect is taken care of and do it in a respectful way?
Right.
It,
And
it
for the
does.
record,
It's
for
so
our
busy.
listeners, that's not just lip service. Our clinic, we have to deal with a lot of folks from various environments. That interaction can sum up a patient one, two, and three in a clinical day for us. Um, very
And
consistently. Like it's not a weird thing for that to be a real part of the day.
each experience can be completely different, because I can tell you I've had experiences where I'm giving advice about exercise routines, and I'm a big fan of Tai Chi, and I'm a big fan of yoga, and I have had patients look at me and say, I can't do those because of religious reasons. And so you have to step back and say, okay, you can't do those. That's fine. That's part of your experience. You're part of your existence. So let's find a different way to get you those same benefits that fits within your spiritual uh, context. So it's no easy task.
Yeah, no, it's The when I'm talking to the med students about it, I'm referring to it as code switching, right? If you've
Mhm.
encountered that term a lot in the past, it's there's this idea that the way you communicate with another person, um, this is a really packed term. Let me find a way to good. Let me find a good entry point into this one. Basically, the way you interact with another person will activate different parts of your respective personalities. And if you are conscious of that, you can leverage that into something effective, right? So,
Right.
for example, the way I talk to, let's pretend I got somebody who has uh, type 2 diabetes,
Hmm.
relatively advanced metabolic disease, not quite liver failure, but they have some liver, yeah, fatty liver, type 2
Yeah.
diabetes,
Yeah.
no insulin with hypertension, like a standard like player in our clinic,
Yeah.
right?
A daily occurrence.
And,
Daily occurrence.
exactly. And honestly, depending on where they sit in their socioeconomic environment, their spiritual, their political environment, I might have to hit them a little bit of a different way. For example, the way I talk to a hunter about their metabolic disease is meaningfully different from how I talk to, let's say, a more corporate individual. It's not that the problem changes, but the person I have to wake up, the person I need to communicate with, are not the same, right? Like, there's this thing I do with a lot of my patients that I know well. Like, I walk into the room and ask them, like, what's the mission today? And the ones who know me well enough, they resonate with that. Like, oh, there's a mission. Okay, I know
Okay,
what that means.
it's your mission if you choose to accept it.
Exactly. But then you end up with some patients where it's kind of like I'll speak like that, and you'll see them be taken aback by that. Like, wait, what are you talking about? Like the whole like target ready, quick reaction behavior
Hmm.
scares them, and I'm like, oh, got it. I need to be gentle, ma'am, sir.
Let-
How may I help you today?
Let's
Let's
pull
be
this
real.
one
It's the
back.
same damn thing coming out of me,
Right. Right. Just
but
a
at a
different
very
approach.
right, but at a higher level, right? That's code switching in the most generic form.
Mhm.
The ability to code switch between that physical, mental, and spiritual filter is a big deal, right? Because not everybody cares about their body, but they might care about their soul or their mind, or maybe the reason they care about their body is because it's the vehicle for their soul, or you know, what I mean, there's a thousand ways this can play out.
And they may be caring for someone else and putting it in terms of how caring for themselves will allow them to be a stronger, more reliable caregiver for that family or that friend or that community. Can make all the difference from whether or not they agree to participate in what you're offering.
Right. Because the thing that I call a mission sometimes, spoken in a more Christian context, somebody might call a vocation.
Right.
Right, because
A
that
vocation
might
or
be what that is.
a vocation or a calling, any number of adjectives that would fit within their own perception of what's reasonable. So it's very important for us to understand this so that we can actually reach our patients in a meaningful interpersonal level.
Right.
I think that part of the difficulty we face, and we see this on social media, physician groups. How do you connect with patients in a 5 or 10 minute meeting? Well, number one, we try to schedule them for longer meetings, but how do you reach a patient centered type of practice when you only have a few minutes? Well, this is part of how we do it in learning how to communicate on a personal level rather than just a paternalistic. And let's face it, modern medicine comes from a paternalistic background. You go to the doctor tells you what to do. You take the prescription home. You take the medicines dutifully, like a good child, and then you go back. And if you don't do it, then you get in trouble, right?
Right. We call those patients non-compliant. If we did do it enough times, we kick them out or we verbally flog them.
Right.
Which, for those parents who, you know, have kids, because parents, of course, have kids. Um, yeah, that methodology works really well, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times some version of "shame on you, slap slap" has done good on your older kids. I don't know.
Uh,
It's
yeah, it doesn't work for mine.
yeah, Exactly. And I mean, look, my son is 3 years old, so he's not by any means an old kid. But at the same time, the shame on you only gets him so far. Like at some point, I just got to explain to him what's going on. You know, what I mean, I have to teach him
Hmm.
more than I have to command him. Um, which, by the way, the best thing I've ever done to be a better clinician or and a teacher, because running joke, I'm a martial arts teacher. At this point, anybody who
Right.
watches the show kind of knows that by now. It was actually
Yeah.
having a kid. Um, because yeah, when you have to teach a 2 year old how to be, your game has to get on point, or your
Yes.
kid just goes full on cocoa melon. Yeah,
Your kid gets
yeah.
out of there quick. Like, whatever, Dad. I'm gonna go and
Oh
throw
man,
something against the wall.
Jesus Christ! I've never
Oh,
seen anything better at hyping my kid up than cocoa melon, Blippy, and Paw Patrol in tandem together. Like full on grandparents babysitting, no rules, and I'm like, all right, what's going on? And all of
oh,
a sudden, it's just a madhouse, like a goddamn
just
madhouse.
throw in some Nintendo Wii. That just brings it to a whole new level, my friend.
I will admit I do play a lot of Nintendo, like the Switch, with my son, but we made a clear rule that it only goes on the big screen. Like we will not use it as a handheld. Period.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Very good
He
idea.
also plays games that are kind of zen like a lot of Breath of the Wild, where honestly the most exciting thing you can do is wander around for 10 minutes, find a red goblin, shoot it in the face, and go, all right, now what? You go find another goblin 10 minutes later. Like it's kind of soothing actually, just because it's a lot of just roaming around nature, which in
Yeah, that
COVID times made a lot of sense.
I've heard of that game. We don't have that. We have Smash Brothers and some of those that really send the kids really send them through the roof.
Wait,
How's
as
the
in the
buffalo?
new one for the Switch?
No, we have an old Wii. We're talking in 2008 Wii.
Oh, got it. Okay,
So
because I'm not gonna
old.
lie, I was this close. I was this close to buying it, but I'm like, I got to keep this the hell away from my kid, man.
You
They
do. You
my
really
kids.
do. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No one even had to tell me, man. I like as much as I love that game. I'm like, this is kitty crack. My
Yeah, and with your
my
kid
son
having martial arts
absolutely.
skills.
He's learning how to fight better from the video games he's playing. By the way, like the kid was double stick feeding one of my students today. Oh, sorry, yesterday. He grabs two sticks and just roars like a beast and just starts swinging like Sinawali stuff at my guy. And I'm like, what are you doing, kid? He's like, I'm fighting like Sora. Context: his jam right now, like his favorite thing is Kingdom Hearts, specifically Kingdom
Oh,
Hearts 2. Like, I'm not implying this is a good move, but if I need him to just shut up for a minute and I just like turn it on, put on Valor mode, give him two Keyblades, and let him go kill some Heartless, he'll be a pig in shit for like an hour. Not implying you should do that or that I want to do that or even that I do, but I'm just letting you know if I were to do that, it would work. So, he spends like whatever amount of time playing Kingdom Hearts with me, smack a Heartless, cry about Riku, whatever. And all of a sudden, like, he's pulling out moves in my garage with a stick. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm Sora. He's like doing roof blocks and stuff. And I'm like, for all the times I
oh,
taught you how to do that exact move, the anime
you
boys, what you.
finally
Ah,
there we go. Oh,
man.
okay. So apparently, Guru Mike is going to have to come up with an anime channel for Biani. I'm just
I
saying.
think he's actually offloaded that to me because that is not his speed, man. Like that is not his world. Let's be
We're
real.
gonna
It's
have to make
barely even my world.
we're gonna have to make this happen because
Yeah.
it would just be amazing.
Yeah. When my med students find out I'm a reformed like otaku, they go full like, have you caught up with it? Have you watched it? I'm like, dudes, it's been since roughly 2008 for me. Slow down. The most recent thing I've watched was
Slow
like
your
Attack
roll.
on Titan.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. Well,
This had a
getting
point, I swear. Hold on.
yeah, yeah, getting back to being able to explain
Teaching.
to a 2-year-old
Teaching.
teaching. Yeah, yeah. When you can
Yes.
explain it in terms that a 2-year-old understands, you understand it well enough yourself. And now translating it to patients is key because I mean, let's be real here. We are talking to a patient about their health ecosystem. I like to call it health ecosystem instead of just holistic health because to me that
Okay.
encompasses the entire environment and climate and local situation which a patient finds himself. And if we can put it in terms of their personal ecosystem and package this so that they can implement it within their own ecosystem, I think is going to be a more effective way of providing care for that patient.
That's nice. I might actually keep that. I didn't know that's how you framed it.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's
think
on point with what we do, right?
it is because how do we really approach patients? We go into the room with them, and we try to enter their home, if you will, in a disconnected sort of way. They have entered our realm, and we try to enter theirs. That's the whole purpose behind a good exam and a good history taking is really to walk into the patient's home and find out what's going on there. Now, I love how you approach your metabolic syndrome patients in particular. Tell us about how your video visits go with these patients.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that's always fun. So this assumes we have video access.
Number one,
Context.
that's
Ever
key.
since,
Yeah.
yeah. So because I'm assuming someday, maybe in 2035 or something, somebody's going to watch this. Let me set the stage a little bit. Um, COVID happened. Hopefully, we're not dead when you guys are watching this.
Ooh,
But
that's very apocalyptic.
look, man, the first year that this happened, I couldn't watch certain shows because I'm like, what if I don't make it? What anyway? Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
2019 COVID happens, and a lot of the healthcare system had to change appropriately because we didn't have the physical manpower to be everywhere, and we also just
Hmm.
had exposure issues, contagion issues to manage, right? And
Absolutely.
one of the things that emerged that honestly I kind of really like about the situation was, look, a lot of the work we do is counseling based and conversational, right? Like, not
Hmm.
everything I do needs a stethoscope. And even my students, they get thrown off by it. I don't wear a stethoscope, like, or use one on the regular. In fact, I probably use my ultrasound more than my stethoscope in the past quarter. Um, to be fair, I got an ultrasound and it's fun as hell, but that's a different conversation. Anyway,
Doctors
telehealth
everywhere.
visits became the norm. Telehealth, as in like telephone or video conference or digital visits, became the norm.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of docs honestly had trouble adapting to that because, like, how do I listen to the heart over the? You don't have to listen to the damn heart. Stop it. There's other things you can do.
They've got
Like
an upper
what? So
respiratory infection. You don't listen. You need to listen to their heart.
right, can they hold their breath for 5 seconds? No, they're probably short of breath, man. You're okay. But
Yeah,
one of the things that I really liked about that tool, which I'm not even gonna lie, I picked this one up because I was in a long distance relationship with my wife before she became my wife, and I grew up with the internet, so this all just made sense to me. I was like, wait,
right.
I'm in your house. Show me your kitchen.
Yeah,
Like, that's a legit move I'll play. Like, that's a routine move now. It's like, okay, we're doing this metabolic thing. I taught you what to do. I gave you a list of foods that make sense, a list of foods that don't make sense. You know how much to eat. You know how to measure your food. We went through some math problems together, like count the carbs, subtract the fiber, do the math. Good for you. Solve for X. And the thing that really drove the point home from I don't want to say compliance because that's the wrong word, but
more
from
an
getting them to buy
adherence.
into it,
Yeah,
like the actual
buy-in.
buy-in phase.
Absolutely.
what I,
Yeah.
what I would do is, after they do their training with me in the office, right? Like, here's a bunch of math problems, solve for carbs. You know what I mean? Um, that is like, wow. Anyway, solve for carbs. Show me that you're
So,
proficient.
it's not solve for X,
This is
solve
a
for C, carbs.
this took like an hour with a patient over like one day. Like, it was me, our pharmacist, and this patient just trying to like puzzle out like how to consistently account and calculate for carbohydrates in a variety of situations. And you would think she'd get it, and then all of a sudden I throw a new variable in, like, by the way, this is a liquid. And all of a sudden it all falls apart. And I'm like, God damn it. Anyway,
And this
the
is why
thing
we
that
do
would get the
math.
buy in.
This is why we do
Yes.
math.
Yeah. You solve for X so X can become whatever you need it to. X is going to give it to you. Anyway, you solve for carbs. They get proficient. I see them in their home. And then we do a walk around in their kitchen. Like, pull out your most common foods. Like, you mentioned you like, and they'll say something like, oh, doc, I eat a lot of insert whatever thing, like whatever pasta, whatever bread thing. And like, I don't know if it's good or not for what I'm trying to do. I'm like, you know what? Let's find out together.
Let's
Let me
take a
see your
look.
cupboard. And they'll open the thing. I'll take a look at it. And they'll actually show me and they'll read the label to me. But as they're doing that, we're in it together. Like I'm seeing what they're seeing, kind of like in a POV context,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I get insight into their home in a way that they allow me to. Right, like show me your cupboard becomes that's how you shop. That's what you have in stock. Because sometimes I'll have a patient do that, and all I'll see is condiments and maybe okay some like burrilla, like spaghetti noodles, and I'm like, there's nothing left, and I'm like, got it. We have a lot to do here.
yeah,
Or a
yeah.
really good one, like a really nice one that stuck with me. I had a patient who thought he was doing like really good, like really thought he was on point with everything. Doc, I'm drinking diet soda, this and the other thing. I cut out all the carbs and blah blah blah. Why is this not working? And I'm like,
Mhm.
just let's do the thing. Let me see a kitchen man. And I find out that the diet drinks he's getting aren't actually diet, and he just didn't know how to tell the difference. Like um, they were sport drinks,
Oh, so yeah, yeah. The
and for him,
electrolyte
like
beverages.
right, and there's no shame in that. Like there's folks I know who'll take protein shakes as a weight loss food, and I'm like, you're misinformed. Um, here, take this gain fuel and try to lose weight. Just it doesn't connect. So he
No,
thought he was taking diet drinks sincerely, but he was taking sports drinks because he figured sport drinks are athletic, therefore you lose weight because they're sport drinks. And I'm like, I can see all of the assumptions that you would have had to make that would have made sense if you didn't know better. So good for you. Here's why it's not working, man. You're drinking Gatorade.
right.
Um,
And not only is it Gatorade, but it enhances both salt and sugar intake. So it's doing the opposite of what he's thinking. But you
right,
know, in his defense, these drinks are marketed towards athletes and they're shown during athletic events and they're shown drunk by people who are fit and cut and strong and doing what he wants to become. So it would make sense from the
right,
marketing standpoint that I should drink what they're drinking because look how good a shape they're in, and maybe
right.
that will be there.
And I should wear Michael Jordan sneakers. Wait, I should wear Kobe Bryant sneakers because they'll make me jump better, which it doesn't because I'm 5'4" and I don't play
Right.
basketball.
That's
But
right.
and I can't shame him for making that error because, like you said, the marketing throws it off. In fact, my wife actually, um, so she's setting up for nursing school. She's doing her undergrad stuff. She had to take
Mhm.
a writing course, it wasn't a scientific writing course, but like a debate almost type of format. And she decided as her topic to explore the claim that Cheerios is a health food because she's my wife, and of course she'll pick that as a damn
Of course,
topic.
because it's heart
But
healthy according to the AHA and the little check mark on the box.
well, I found out that apparently the FDA called them out for basically marketing Cheerios like a pharmaceutical. Like, what do you mean this can lower your cholesterol in 6 weeks? That awfully sounds like a drug, sir,
Hmm.
General Mills.
Do you
So
have any
General
research?
Mills, yeah. So they offered up the research, and then it was kind of like, none of this implies what you said is true. Please fix your damn claim. But all this to say, because Cheerios was marketed so aggressively as a health food, a whole generation of adults genuinely believe that if they sling back a bunch of Cheerios boxes, they're going to protect their heart because the cholesterol is
Mhm.
bad or something like that.
Right,
In
right.
fact, there's a patient who, honest to God, it took me. This is going to sound terrible without context. It took me 3 months to convince this guy to change his diet after seeing him all the damn time. And you would think like 3 months to convince a dude. What? Why am I not closing faster? Right?
Right.
Um, like full on Alec Baldwin. You know what I mean? But what ended up happening was one, the dude turns out he has dementia, which we found out over time. So that's a
Oh,
big
well, yeah,
deal.
that gets in the way for sure.
Kind of tells you why he can't close on a deal. Two, um, we had to overcome all of his preconceived biases about food, plus the fact that he can't retain data at a fast rate, right? So not only was he demented,
Oh,
sincerely, like the dude has dementia,
right.
but in the time, so keep in mind, when you have various levels of Alzheimer's, you don't lose everything all at once. You lose bits and features. Making
It's
new
it's
memories gets rough,
gradual.
old memories stick.
Yeah.
His old ingrained memories was Cheerios are good for me. That's what my mama taught me. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't say that to him, obviously, but I'm there like, son of a
Yeah. Yeah. In the background, you're going, oh,
yeah.
Ah,
When I finally convinced him that it was a problem, it looked like I shot his puppy. Like it broke the dude's heart because he really thought he was doing himself right. Like, why am I getting so sick? I need more pills because obviously my body's just so broken because no matter what I do that's healthy, I keep getting sicker. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
Gatorade, Cheerios, and apple pie. Who the hell taught you how to eat? And then, oh
Gatorade.
God, man. But at the same time, if that's what he in his heart of hearts believed, I can't. He wasn't saying, Doc, I don't want to change. This is what I like. I'll die with it. He was saying, I thought this was good for me, sir. And that's a very different ask.
And we have to you talked about code switching. It's almost like we are reprogramming understanding that, and it's an uphill battle because so many messages have been put out about so many products for so many years that reversing that trend has become one of the most difficult aspects of working within this health ecosystem that a patient brings to us. You know, it's almost like someone comes in and their body is a Superfund site and we have to clean it up. What do you have to do to clean up a Superfund site? Well, sometimes you have to remove soil. Sometimes you have to take water out. Sometimes you have to bring in special cleaning agents. We're doing the same thing, except we're cleaning up Superfund sites, essentially, in
You
someone's
know,
body.
I'm very grateful that I read a bunch of farming books in the past year because that sentence would have gone over my head about a year ago. Not gonna lie, but yeah, no, I feel you. It's the there's a really cool series of analogies that I've been playing with in my head. For
Right? Go ahead.
example, once a when the med student is gonna figure out what the hell kind of doctor they're gonna be, right?
Yeah.
There's a bit of a personality to the different specialties, right? Like it's like if you're really into the chess game, the problem solving, the fine control, like do this to affect that, check the lab, move on. You probably should be an internist. Like go IM, have fun, maybe be a specialist. You're awesome, great. You're the smart guy. If you like getting paid and fishing for money, you do colonoscopies.
Be a
I think there's
proceduralist.
the other basically. We call orthos ortho bros for a reason. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. This is all in
Hmm.
good humor, by the way. We love each other, and if anybody else insults us, I'll kill you, but you get the idea. But it's one of those in tribe things, right? Like we get to make fun of each
Yeah,
other.
that's
But
right.
honestly, orthos
And
can't. The next time an
and we
orthopod
keep
tries to admit a patient because they have the sodium, man, I'm just going to flip. But at the same time, man, they're pretty damn good carpenters. Let's be
Yes,
real.
they are. They are.
Like
They're not
I don't
general
trust me with a
contractors.
hammer and chisel. Exactly.
No.
Like give me a hammer chisel in a spine and no, it's a bad day.
No,
Um,
we're more the
but
general contractor and they're the carpenters coming in to do the work that's needed, right?
there you go. But the reason I bring this up is the primary metaphor that a lot of very academic, very nerdy clinicians like to hold on to is like the chess master, right? Like I like the chess game of medicine, as opposed to the ER doc who wants to play paintball, you know? Um, and I had trouble
Adrenaline junkie.
finding out our metaphor. Yeah, like finding the FM metaphor was rough because I know we're kind of the hippies in the crew, but I
Right.
also know that you and I, for quite a while, have been reading. This is a couple minutes ago. We have been reading a lot of farming books, like agriculture
Yeah.
literature,
Yeah,
to be better
absolutely.
clinicians. And you would think, oh, it's like some Musashi stuff, like oh, they'll learn farming in order to become better. No, 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 no. I mean this literally learning about farming for the sake of
Yeah.
farming, because farming, um, because it does
Because
connect eventually. But the idea was there's this General Stanley McChrystal, right? I brought him up a couple different ways. He's the team of teams guy, right?
mhm,
And he
mhm.
was talking about decentralized command and how he learned how to run an elite team. And the thing was, he prided himself as being the chess master for the longest time. And the biggest revelation he made as a professional to, by the way, he did a damn good job doing his job, was when he stopped being a chess player and decided to become a gardener instead. And then I'm like, well, that sounds kind of dope. And then I'm looking at what would that mean for folks like you and me? And I'm like, what if I stopped doing the chess game and just started gardening my humans? and all of a
Mm,
sudden I have like a list of patients I actively like tend to. Like the metaphor shifted, and the minute I stopped micromanaging and started basically the minute they stopped becoming D&D paper doll spreadsheets and started becoming plants to grow, the
changes
behaviors, the outcomes,
everything.
the tone changed.
And I
Paper
think I've
doll, by
used,
the way, is the name of the yeah.
and I think I've used this phrase with you before. You teach someone correct principles and let them govern themselves, and then
Right.
you don't get caught up in the weeds of why is this particular lab value not going where I want it to go. But it becomes a conversation of here's where your labs are today. Here's how we get them to where they can go in the future. Would you like to walk this journey with me? And let's do this together. That's a completely different
Exactly.
mindset from the traditional Western medical approach.
It implies we're going to throw a ring into Mordor.
Yes, my precious.
Oh man.
Oh man,
The
yeah,
now keep in mind the reason this keeps coming up in different ways is the holistic game, for me at least, is a communication game, right? Like there's
yes,
no amount of granola that's going to change the fact that there's a medical problem when there's a medical problem. And as much as I train the martial arts and love to lift and all that type of stuff, there's no amount of deadlifting that'll protect me from COVID, right? Like there is a need for the Western model. There's a need for the health and wellness mindset. There's the Eastern thing. There's the fitness thing, and then there's the spiritual like thing as such. And they all have to learn how to play nice together. But that implies communication between between those filters, right?
right. They can coexist peacefully, and in reality, they must coexist peacefully if we are to develop a healthy populace for the long term.
Yeah, right. Like as silly as it is, if I can take some of Joe Rogan and add that with some like medicine, I'm good to go. Like
Yeah.
I can have my sauna and get my vaccine too. Why not?
As a matter of fact, why don't we just give vaccines while sitting in saunas? I'm just saying.
That is closing in on Rogan turf actually.
Or maybe one of those cool baths, the basically a deep freezer filled with water. Yeah.
Oh, the you mean that whole alternating ice cold thing, or just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
straight up
yeah.
cold submersion thing?
A cold submersion thing. Can you imagine giving a vaccination while submerged in the cold? You wouldn't even feel the
I
shot.
mean, I say you won't feel the needle once you're like all shivery and whatnot. There was a period where I used to try to do the cold shower thing on the regular.
Hmm.
Um, it was. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. I stopped because it just wasn't doing anything for me. Like I have other ways to meditate at this point,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I will say there was something nice about starting the day, crawling into the shower like God, I hate this. Why the hell am I just? And all of a sudden you're just like blasted in the face with like dive reflex inducing cold water.
With my shower built as it is, I can turn it on for the first 5 minutes, and it's a dive-inducing cold shower.
Jesus Christ. I have an inner monologue in my house, in my mind, going full Charlton Heston. It's a madhouse. It's a madhouse. While I'm like trying not to get sprayed by the monkey. I'm the monkey.
Yeah. Oh
That's a
boy.
Planet of the Apes reference for those who are like younger than 30 years old. I apologize.
Yes, and that was the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler if it's been 50 years, right?
And it's not a spoiler. It's been 50 years.
Jesus Christ. Notice, and look, this is going to sound kind of silly and almost like a retroactive justification, but if you, as the viewer, are noticing the obscene concentration of nerd references going on, part of that is because I'm sleep deprived. Part of that is
He is
because,
a father of young twins and a toddler. So sleep deprivation comes standard with that package.
true, we were trying to record this episode for the past month, and I've had to reschedule every time because every time my kids get better, they get sick again. I thought I'd be in the clear. By the way, we need to like pay my wife somehow. My daughter vomited 4 times since
Oh
saying, "Hey,
no.
my kids are better," and
Oh,
getting home. Like
yeah.
today, like I saw you in the office today, right? And I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
we're good. Let's make this happen." Between like Not even 10 minutes after I tell you that, I got a text like, yo, it's a puke fest at home. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, we got to take her to the axe throwing. We got to.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's online now, so that has to happen, right?
Yeah.
But
Jen, if you're watching,
the
axe throwing is going to be in the works. I promise you.
there you go. The reason I bring up and call to attention this almost like meta perception of how nerdy this conversation's getting, a lot of the holistic game involved a lot of being, and this is going to sound new age and hokey as shit, I apologize, kind of true to yourself. Like, I cannot bullshit my way into communicating well with my patients, right? Like, if I
Right.
don't, like, we talk about code switching, right? If I don't have the way to link up with them emotionally, I can't do it. And there's no shame in that. In fact, I'll
No.
refer them to a different member of the team to do it for me because there are certain personas, I get it, I don't get it. Like, I can't connect with them. And I might have
And
the right move, but if they hear it from me, it's going to go bad.
well, and that's just going back to that whole health ecosystem. If you cannot connect to that particular ecosystem, you find someone who can, and that is the ultimate holistic approach to a patient. When you realize that you might not be able to do what they need, but you can hook them up with someone who can. That is every bit as appropriate as trying to slog through yourself and hope
Right.
that something sticks if you throw enough stuff at them,
Yeah.
and hope that they
Which I'll
don't
admit
cower and fear.
yeah. I'll admit that was a rough change for me actually, because from an ego standpoint, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty decent at what I do. So getting into a position where I'm kind of like, wait, what do you mean I can't do this? Does not sit well with me. At the same time, it's not about me, right? Formally speaking, it's literally not about me. I'm just the guy trying to facilitate data to a patient so they can do the work. Something about channeling, something about tainted, whatever. Anyway, having having that patient transition to a different doc who can connect with them,
Mhm.
or finding a way to leverage my other members of the team, my residents, my students, to bridge the bonding feature for me when I can't, is part of the holistic work, right? Because
Absolutely is.
yeah, it was it. Nobody cares how much I know, right? It's
Until
about
they
how much my patient knows. Um, but that implies a level of holisticness, right? Like it's like you function more like an educator than a clinician until you have the right to be a clinician, and then you can do clinical things, right?
Mhm.
After the patient's
Mhm.
bought in, now I can begin to like do the authoritarian parental thing. Like they've already invested, they've let me in. You know what I mean?
And once you've built that connection, that relationship, then and only then can you move forward to work together to achieve the health outcomes that in reality you both want. I mean, ultimately, this is finding out what the patient wants and aligning your goals so that you're both aiming at the same target. Because until you're aiming at the same target, you're not going to hit the same target, right?
It sounds like a lot of Chris Voss kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
right on target, right? Stay on target. Stay on
Hon-
target.
Honestly, something about never splitting the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It
But
sounds like we've been reading some of the same literature.
it's like we have a shared library or something. But one of the really good challenges to this specific episode is something like, what the hell does this have to do with being osteopathic? Because, I mean, look, it makes sense to you and I because this is our work, but at the same time, you and I could be full of ourselves.
We could be,
Um,
and we probably are to
like,
some
that's a real
extent.
bias to watch out for. I mean,
Yeah,
we also have a podcast where we just shoot the shit for an hour to each other about this, so we have to be a little full of ourselves.
right.
But one of the things to make explicit is what makes this osteopathic, because
Hmm.
there's a reason we're talking about this episode this way on this show, not in some other format, right? Like we could have easily called this the "What is Communication" episode on some random "How to Talk Good" show, but
Absolutely.
um, right, but we wanted it here because it was on point, on mission, etc., for what we do. Can you help explain, make it explicit what about this hits that osteopathic concept so directly?
Well, when we talk about osteopathic, medicine, what does that truly mean, right? We've got our tenets. The body is a unit, it has self healing properties, and so on and so forth. We have the osteopathic approach to look at a patient not just for what illness is causing them pain or dysfunction, but we were taught to say, to zoom back, as we've said in the past, zoom back to 50,000 feet or 100,000 feet and say, now, wait a second. Our patient is suffering from some illness, but what's the original cause? What's the proximate cause? So, if we have a diabetic patient, what's the proximate cause? Well, their blood sugar is not in control. But this zoom out to the original cause. Well, within their health ecosystem, they're in a food desert where they don't have access to good quality food. So they're eating lots of foods that are highly processed, and with their genetic component of predisposition for metabolic syndrome, they are fanning the flames of metabolic dysfunction. So, from an osteopathic standpoint, we take that view and say, okay, what do we do to change their environment? And could that mean we need to do some osteopathic manipulation to potentially work with their parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system? Sure, maybe not. Do we need to know what's in their pantry so that we can help guide them to a better a better diet choice? Sure, absolutely. Do we need to know what kind of work they do so we can understand where they can exercise and when they can exercise, and what exercise should they be doing to make sure that their work is optimized? Absolutely. And so it stems from these basic tenets of osteopathic medicine it, that teach us to frame the way we approach patients in such a way that we don't just focus on a particular disease. So each disease has its proximate causes. So with diabetes, for example, we have elevated insulin because blood sugars are not under control, and other things. But a more broad cause would be a patient is living in a quote unquote food desert, meaning they don't have access to high quality foods, that these highly processed foods that they do consume activate those genetic switches that they inherited from their parents to stay on, essentially. And these genetic triggers then cause the metabolism to go wacky, and blood sugars go wild, and insulin's through the roof, and then the body stops listening to insulin. So we don't just look at, oh well, his hemoglobin A1C is 9.5. We look at his entire environment in which he or she is living and say, wait a second, look at all of this stuff that's in boxes and bags, and what's in that that's causing this, and what if we take these things out of their environment? Can we reverse these switches and turn them off again? And we're finding out, yes, we can do that if, and this is a big if, we address the environmental factors that are causing those switches to be turned on in the first place. And that's a very osteopathic approach, because we are more than just looking at a patient coming in and saying, oh, yeah, your blood sugars are high, you got diabetes, let's just get these blood sugars down.
Yeah, man. For all the insulin that people get put on prematurely.
Yes.
There is a time for insulin, for the record. Like, I am not anti-Lantus, you know what I mean? But at the
Anti-Lantus.
same time, I mean, there's a time and a place, right? Like, give me somebody in DKA in a hospital, right? And I'm not going to talk about fasting in that environment, man. It's all about,
No,
like, the
no.
insulin. Let's get them sugars down. Let's throw some potassium at this. Let's have some fun. But at the same time, right tool for the right job, right? One of the challenges I can imagine to this idea is, but aren't you guys the back cracking docs? I thought I was seeing a chiropractor. To be perfectly fair, I say this because one of my patients when he met me, was extremely confused at what he paid for, because he
Mm-hmm.
came in for his back pain, and I told him he has hydronephrosis and a kidney stone. This was a real conversation I had, and I was like, he was like, "Wait, well, what's happening right now?" I'm like, "You have a stone in your kidney, and you're pee in this cup, please. There is blood in the." So he's asking me to crack his back, and I'm like,
There's a blood.
Frank blood. Like,
Yeah.
I grab the ultrasound and I slap it onto his kidney, and it's like, here is hydronephrosis with a ureter. Just, you have a stone, man. Why can't you crack my back? Because you have a stone,
Because
man.
it's not going to make any difference. I got a bad review from a patient once who says, I thought I was going in for a massage. And I was like, no, you're not coming in for a massage. You're coming
Right.
in for a
And to be fair, that's a branding issue on our side. Like, let's
yeah.
be real. The word osteopathic does not imply holistic, right? Like, once upon a time, so let's turn the clock real far back. Like, let's get away from the modern era. Let's go back old school. You know what I mean? Um, this was not designed to be a musculoskeletal skill set, right? It became that, obviously, because it's the most natural application.
Mm-hmm.
But once upon a time, this was for infectious disease. Like, the first genuine application of osteopathic tech, the things that became osteopathic medicine outside of like lightening bone setting or whatever, was asthma. Like, on record, it was asthma. And then it was pneumonia and diphtheria. And like, we were respiratory docs before we became MSK guys.
Right.
And then,
Right.
thank God, antibiotics happened, and it was like, what the hell do we do with our hands now? And turns out, when you make people's lungs move good, their back don't hurt so much. So there's a very natural evolution to becoming the thing parallel to chiropractic, but it has to be understood that that's not what we are formally. But at the same time, you kind of need a word other than fixie good with hand parts. So when AT
And
Still was put to the question, that's another reference. I didn't mean that one. Man, I've been watching a lot of Wheel of Time, man.
oh well,
Anyway,
are you Dr. Rand? Is that what the deal is?
God, no. I'm not even going to indulge that question because spoilers for my wife, so shut up. Um,
Shutting up.
yeah. Look, they're only covering book one, man. Anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
when pressure was put to ACT Still to name the thing he was doing, because it was just like, what do you do, sir? I make people good with my hand parts. What do you mean? That rib don't do good. I move rib, and all of a sudden, breathy good, infection gone. We need words, man. And then eventually, osteopathic became like, just use it, screw it, make it something. I don't care, whatever.
I
And it
don't got
stuck, which
anything
is
better.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, hey, branding matters, but at the same time, we got the branding wrong really early. Um,
Yeah. Once it's
Shame on
stuck,
us, I guess.
once it's stuck, and there was no going back.
Yeah, you can consider this our direct approach to that lesion. But what ended up happening was, because we are by name designed to sound like the bone docs, the MSK docs, it's hard to understand that the osteopathic thing, really the idea was that osteopathic wasn't about fixing bones, it was understanding pathology via the bones, as in seeing pathology through the soma, as in
Mhm.
looking at the body via an architectural engineering overlay versus a strictly biochemical one. Um, Properly speaking, it would be better just to call us, I guess, body biomechanical engineers. But that's a word now. That means something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if
That
they
works.
didn't claim it first, if they didn't
We should
claim
have.
it, I would say we're right.
Yeah, they're squatting on our IP.
Yeah, because let's be real. 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with my patients, I'm shifting, like code switching, right? I'm shifting to a mechanical like metaphor, because most
Mhm.
patients can't chemistry worth a damn, but everybody knows what a car is. And if I
Right.
talk about engines and fuel, right, and nobody knows the word tachometer, but I talk about the thing that goes into the red line, they're like, "Oh, I understand red line." I'm like, "Good, that thing."
And now they know it's a tachometer.
Exactly. Please don't live in the red, please.
Yeah, don't
What
burn
do you
yourself
mean?
out.
But the idea was that the osteopathic thing was designed to look at pathology from a mechanical overlay, because it was necessary when it was missing. But the idea wasn't like, it's not like we were religiously attached to the mechanical overlay. It was that and this is the punk rock version of medicine that comes out of me sometimes. The system was not working, so we had to do better, right? Like all we
Right.
had was
Oh,
chicken guts, quicksilver, leeches. We had leeches.
and strychnine.
Shit. Oh yeah, man. And quinine. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. Like, what are some of the
Yeah.
big, like,
Yeah. You
good old
already
faithful
said.
treatments?
Yeah. Yeah. It has some
Bloodletting. We had
bloodletting.
bloodletting.
Oh. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and
So
truth be told, we really didn't know why stuff worked. We just know that it did, and we
right,
we we didn't have either the technology to evaluate it or the descriptive terminology to explain what we were doing. We just,
right,
hey, look, we did something, it got better, so something was working. Whatever that
right.
was, we have no idea.
We were two steps above voodoo, man. Like American medicine was kind of dark ages.
It
But
was.
at the same time, you know what I mean? It's the reason that the osteopathic thing and all the other alternative medicines, the chiropractic thing, the magnetism thing, the hydrotherapy thing, all that stuff, the reason
Mhm.
there was that proliferation in the 19th century was because everybody knew the American system at the time was busted. So collectively, everybody tried to find a better way. Flexner happened, and all of a sudden, everything consolidates, which is, its own conversation. And we're in this weird second version of the same phenomenon. We know the American system isn't quite working. So we're doing the old thing again and trying to find a better way, right?
Now the old things
Um,
become new.
right. And something about the wheel.
The wheel turns as the wheel does.
Basically, can we call this the third age? Or is this the
Right.
second age? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
I know. We're
Yeah,
nowhere near Age of Legends, man, but
not there yet. Not there yet. Legends in our own
um,
mind, right?
yeah. Remember back in the beginning of season two, when we were just beginning to make these references like
Uh huh.
haphazardly, and all of a sudden this became the primary filter? We haven't mentioned Disney yet.
Not yet. Let's get down to business.
No. There you go. But
Obligatory Disney
in,
reference.
in all seriousness, the reason I'm bringing up the why this matters in osteopathic context is honestly a recommendation from one of our colleagues. She mentioned she gets why this is osteopathic because she drank the Kool-Aid with us a long damn time ago. But for Joe Schmo listener, for the med student, for the health curious viewer who's listening to this and like, what is osteopathic medicine? I mean, look, if they made it to season 3 of the show, I'm assuming they're bought in already. But at the same
Should
time, if
hope
they're a
so.
new listener first episode, it's not intuitive what the hell we're talking about. Like, one of the big things to comment on is what you and I are talking about. We act like it should be the standard of care, or like we act as if we expect this to be the standard,
We would love
but
it
it's
to be.
because we hold ourselves to it, and unfortunately, it is not the standard. Um, and that's not to say that not doing this equals bad medicine. It's the other way of doing it. It's a lot more rote. It's a lot more prescriptive. It's a lot more command and control, which has its place, right? There's a time to take
Absolutely.
charge, right? Like,
Absolutely.
give me. This is gonna be a word for my. Oh, should we teach the non-medicals about neck fash?
Yeah, let's do.
All right, screw it. Once upon no, there is a version of a skin infection that isn't the skin infection. There's this thing that osteopaths love to talk about called fascia, and it's this really beautiful, super connected highway of tissue, like your head bone's connected to your heel bone and everything in between, and it's all good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's this actual technical highway connecting literally from here, like this thing right here, up through here, using the video feature to its fullest, right, all the way down to my foot. And what end up happens is that highway actually matters because sometimes that highway gets infected.
Yeah, and it's
And
not
when
a
that
pretty sight.
super when that super highway gets infected, that thing that looked like a little skin infection travels from its local site all over the body in rapid order. The kill window for that thing is 8 hours. I believe I was taught by my orthopods.
Yeah.
Um, it's an 8 hour kill window from infection to death, which means by the time you get what? Seen, admitted, evaluated, looked at, oh shitted, consulted ortho, it's the right time to cut you open. Like
Yep.
we're not talking about holistic medicine anymore. It's shut up, we need to sedate you and save your damn leg.
Yep. If not your
But
entire life.
exactly. So it's not to discredit the other model. It's knowing which version to be. And because you and I are primary care docs, because you and I live in that gardening turf, right?
Hmm.
Like you and I are gardeners in medicine playing in an environment where the game is the garden. If we were to use this mindset, right, God forbid we're playing high stakes neurosurgery. This is not the time for this conversation.
No, yeah, no. There is a time and place for every aspect of the medical practice, and this is not. This is not for the OR.
Yeah. Can you imagine if the trauma surge waxed poetical about why spinal cord trauma needs to go down in the middle of a case? Like, that's just,
Oh
I
no,
mean,
I
they're allowed to think that.
yeah, yeah. No, I'll let them just listen to their music and go ahead and sing while they cut.
Exactly. Because again, that we need that other brain too. And that's part
Mhm.
of why this game is so important. This is not meant to discredit, override, or whatever, that it's meant to encompass it. Like, if we do this job right, there's a time to be command and control. There's a time to be a hard parent, right? Like, I love you, son, here's the lesson versus get the hell out of the road are
Yeah,
both very valid parenting strategies.
it's all inclusive. It does not have to be. It does not have to leave anything out.
Right. And I guess that's the big thing I want to drive home. It's when we play with those tenets, specifically that the body's capable of self-regulation, right? That to treat the body as a whole, mind, body, and spirit. In practice, that means knowing how to switch filters, right? And knowing how to switch languages and priorities. But when we play that gardening game, right? If we're playing the wholeness, the holistic, the recovery game, if we act like a surgeon, rather, if we act like a chess master when we're supposed to be gardening, you don't exactly garden good. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah, absolutely. We have to know when it's time to call in the specialist, and as much as we celebrate the tenets, they are tenets because there are times where a body is not living according to those tenets or not existing according to those tenets because of dysfunction, whatever it may be, and it is our responsibility to recognize that and say, okay, I love the metabolic reversal stuff, but there's some other folks that need to be involved with your care, and we're more than happy to send our patients off to the people who are best suited for caring for them at that moment.
Exactly. I had a guy who his back pain. He was a long-standing guy, like one of the orbital patients, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
maintenance guys. As long as you keep working on him at this interval, he can keep doing his job, kind of guys.
Hmm.
And one day he comes in like, "Doc, this is different," and I'm like, "Hell yeah, it's different. What the hell's going on?" And I do my examination, and the dude has upper motor neuron lesions. The dude can't walk. He's telling me he pissed himself, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Okay, this is
That's
real. This is real. This is not a drill. Hey, med student, do your job. Stay with this guy real quick while I go make some phone calls." Um, but he got like he was genuinely upset at me. Like the patient was angry, like angry, almost. He wanted to report me up the chain of command to like the president of the university or whatever because I wouldn't like crack his back. Um, but again, time to be paternalistic, time to be a friend, time to be a teacher. I gave him about as much space to understand. Hey, look, man, this is a different kind of game today. Because can you imagine if I decided to just try conservative in the middle of a kata type of situation?
no, please don't. Yeah,
Right, right. For those who don't know, what I just described, this is a board question for my med students, and for those who don't know medicine, now you know. Um, if you can't feel your genitalia, if you piss yourself or poop yourself, and or if your legs go weak, right, in the context of back pain, that tends to mean that one of the structures in your spine is severely at risk. And I don't mean at risk like, oh, there's a chance bad things are happening. That's almost like a euphemism. You're in danger.
you're
Like the part
already
is
there.
dying on you.
Yeah, you're already in
So
danger.
right, it's a neurosurgical emergency, and the guy wanted basically conservative physical medicine modalities, work the back, massage the muscles, et cetera, for his routine care. But I'm like, you are literally paralyzed. Like we wheelchaired him out of the building that day. You know what I mean? Like it was a whole mess.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that was not the time to run the holistic game. It was,
no,
dude, if we don't cut you in the next 48 hours, you're going to lose something.
yeah, and
So
potentially
unfortunately,
something.
yeah, I had to shortchange my teacher persona because it wasn't the time or place. After he was angry at me, after he let off his steam, and as we got things rolling along, I got to call him and explain what's going on in a bit more detail because the dude was just so hot about it. But noticed that the osteopathic, the holistic, the proper thing to do wasn't to be a gardener that time. It was to just, hey, look, man, I'm the doc for a reason today. I got to pull rank
And we
because
got to go.
sometimes you got to pull rank.
Yeah, we work in the osteopathic manipulative. Really, a neuromusculoskeletal clinic is the clinics we work in, and I tell students all the time that the osteopathic manipulation that we do is only one of the modalities we have. Our real responsibility is to determine what modalities are appropriate and do something about it when modalities that we have at our disposal are not appropriate. At what point do we say, no, we need to do something different, and this is not the place for you? We have to be willing and able to say, put our foot down and say, no, this is not safe. This is not appropriate. We're going to get you to the right level of care, and we're going to do that right away.
There you go. This feels like a natural one.
It feels like a natural place. You can see that we feel strongly about all aspects of healthcare as they're encompassed by what we do, and that's what makes osteopathic physicians so unique in many ways. And it's not to say that our colleagues don't do this. Many of our colleagues are doing this now, but I love the fact that the osteopathic world really pioneered much of this early on. But
it's part of our culture.
It's part of our culture. It's part of who we are, and that's how we work problems. That's how we find problems, fix problems, and help you get healthy again. And hey, welcome back for a third season again. We're glad to have you. And if you're new to the show, we're glad to have you with us. Look for us more on YouTube as well as our regular podcasting sources. And we'll talk to you later.